This is a true story that took place in June 2005 in Ethiopia. It involved 12-year-old Sarah Tesfaye, name changed to protect the identity of the girl, the daughter of a local farmer. She became the central figure in this extraordinary event, which occurred in a remote rural area near the town of Bita, located in the Kefa Sheka region. This region, situated in the southwestern part of the country, is known for its dense forests, rolling hills, and deeply traditional way of life. Among the green valleys and clay huts, the Kefa and Sheka ethnic groups live, preserving many of their ancient customs. One of those customs, bride abduction, known locally as Telefa, remains deeply rooted in local culture, despite being officially outlawed by the Ethiopian government. According to international human rights organizations, in some rural parts of Ethiopia, up to 40% of all marriages began with the kidnapping of a bride, often a minor. Sarah was a diligent student who dreamed of becoming a teacher. Every day, she walked 5 kilometers to the nearest school in a neighboring village, a route that led through sparse woodlands and open savanna terrain. Her family, by local standards, was considered relatively progressive. Sarah's father, in defiance of tradition, insisted that all his children, including his daughters, receive an education. As a young man, he had attended a missionary school himself and believed that knowledge was the key to a better life. On that fateful day, June 11th, 2005, Sarah was returning home from school. The midday sun scorched the earth, and she stopped under the wide shade of an acacia tree to rest. At that moment, a group of 7 men appeared, led by 29-year-old Abibi Gatashu, who had long pursued her hand in marriage but had repeatedly been refused by her parents. They threw a dark cloth over Sarah's head, tied her hands, and, threatening her with knives, led the helpless girl away from the direction of her village. They took her to an abandoned herdsman's hut, located 25 kilometers from her home, deep within the savannah, where she was held captive for an entire week. Abebe and his accomplices acted in accordance with a distorted interpretation of tradition. According to local custom, if a girl spends a night in a man's house, she is considered tainted and must marry him to avoid bringing shame upon her family. The kidnappers believed that once Sarah's family learned what had happened, they would feel pressured to agree to the marriage. For 7 days, Sarah remained in captivity. The kidnappers beat her with bamboo sticks, deprived her of water and food, intimidated her, and tried to break her spirit. She screamed, cried, and begged for help. But in this region, where isolated villages are scattered across dozens of kilometers, no one could hear her suffering. The hut where the girl was held was made of clay and straw, with only a tiny window too small for anyone to escape through. At night, the door was locked from the outside, and during the day, Sarah was constantly guarded by 2 men. Meanwhile, her family, upon discovering her disappearance, immediately raised the alarm. Sarah's father, Tesfaye Balji, went to the local police station in Bita. He already suspected who might be behind the abduction, since Abebi had persistently asked to marry his daughter despite her young age. The police began a search, but given the lack of roads in the vast territory, their initial efforts did not yield any results. Local residents came to help. More than 50 people from surrounding villages, armed with spears and rifles, began sweeping the savannah. They split into groups and systematically searched the land, moving from one abandoned hut to another, from one watering hole to the next. On the 7th day of her captivity, June 18th, something extraordinary happened. According to the police, that was when a group of 3 wild lions, a male with a thick dark mane and 2 females, appeared in the savannah near the location where the girl was being held. At that moment, only 2 guards remained in the hut with Sarah. The others had gone to search for food. The sudden growling and the approach of the predators frightened the kidnappers. They abandoned the child and ran away in panic, trying to save their own lives. Sarah, hearing the roar of the lions and the screams of the fleeing men, crouched in the corner of the hut, expecting the worst. The door, which the guards had not managed to lock in their hurry, slowly opened under the weight of a lion's paw. But the most astonishing part came next. Instead of attacking, as one would normally expect from wild lions, the animals approached the terrified girl, sniffed her, and as if making sure of something, laid down beside her and stayed. They formed a living shield between her and the outside world. One of the lionesses even rested her head on Sarah's trembling knees. According to the girl, as she later told investigators, she saw something in the lioness's eyes, something that resembled compassion, look filled with understanding and protection. For several hours, the lions guarded Sarah until police officers and local residents arrived at the scene. They had managed to track down the location of the kidnappers thanks to information provided by a shepherd who had accidentally seen the men leading a bound girl through the savanna. As the rescuers approached the hut, they were stunned to see, through the opening in the door, the lions lying around the child. Police Sergeant Wandimu Wadaho, who led the search group, later recalled, "We could not believe our eyes. It looked like a scene from the biblical story of Daniel in the lion's den. The girl was sitting among the lions, completely unharmed. When the rescuers cautiously stepped closer, the lions calmly stood up and walked away into the forest, showing no aggression toward the girl or the people. They simply moved away at a slow pace, occasionally turning back as if making sure that Sarah was safe. The girl was brought home alive, physically unharmed but deeply shaken. Her parents, who had nearly lost hope of ever seeing their daughter again, could not believe their good fortune. A local nurse found evidence of bruising on Sarah's body, but fortunately, there were no serious injuries. Later, Sarah explained that she had simply sat quietly next to the animals the entire time, unable to believe she had survived. "I thought they were going to eat me, but they just lay down beside me as if to protect me. I stopped being afraid and felt they would not hurt me," she told reporters. The Ethiopian police officially confirmed the incident. 6 of the 7 kidnappers were arrested in the following days and brought to trial. They received prison sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. Abebe Getachew, the main organizer of the abduction, was given the maximum sentence. This event marked a turning point for the region. Local authorities increased enforcement of laws regarding the minimum age for marriage and the ban on bride abductions. Schools introduced special classes focused on the rights of women and girls. Non-governmental organizations expanded their work in the area, offering support programs for girls at risk of forced marriage. Animal behavior specialists suggested that the lions might have mistaken the girl's crying for the sound of one of their own cubs and, driven by a protective instinct, decided to guard her. Professor Tilahun Kuma of Addis Ababa University, who studied the case, noted, "Lions have complex social intelligence and the ability to recognize emotional states in other beings. It is possible that the extreme fear and stress the girl was experiencing triggered a protective reaction." Other experts pointed to the possibility that the lions may have had previous positive experiences with humans or may have been partially domesticated at some point in the past, although there is no evidence to support this theory. Even among zoologists, such behavior is considered extremely rare and difficult to explain. Dr. Jane Goodall, the world-renowned primatologist, when she heard this story, commented, "The animal world is full of mysteries, and this case is one of them. It reminds us how little we truly understand about the depth of emotional life in wild animals." The story received wide coverage in international media. It was reported by BBC, CNN, Associated Press, and National Geographic. Journalists from around the world traveled to the remote village to interview Sarah and her family, as well as to speak with the police officers and eyewitnesses to this extraordinary event. An article in National Geographic, published in October 2005, included a detailed analysis of the lions' behavior and possible explanations for their unusual actions. The article was accompanied by photographs of the area and illustrations depicting the rescue scene, since the actual moment was, of course, not captured on camera. In its report, BBC emphasized the cultural context of the incident, drawing attention to the issue of early and forced marriages in Ethiopia. This aspect of the story attracted the attention of human rights organizations and activists fighting for women's rights in the region. For the local people, this event took on almost mystical meaning. Among the Kifa ethnic group, which has long revered lions as symbols of strength and nobility, Sarah's story became part of modern folklore. She came to be known as the one protected by lions, a title of honor that was previously reserved only for the most respected elders of the tribe. In Sarah's village, a small monument was built, a wooden sculpture of a girl sitting surrounded by 3 lions. Locals and visitors leave flowers and coins at its base, making wishes for protection and safety. Sarah herself, after growing up, became an active advocate for the rights of girls. She received an education thanks to a scholarship provided by an international organization and returned to her home region as a teacher. She now holds talks with parents and children about the importance of education and the unacceptability of forced marriage. To this day, the case remains one of the most mysterious and moving examples of how animals are capable of behavior that defies the instincts typically associated with predators. Lions, long seen as symbols of wildness and danger, became saviors in this story. And a small Ethiopian girl became a symbol of innocence protected by nature itself. Perhaps this story reminds us of an ancient bond between humans and wild animals, a time when people were not masters of nature but part of it. Or perhaps it was simply an incredible coincidence of circumstances that gave the world a story of hope and unexpected rescue. But for those who believe in miracles, Sarah's case is proof that even in the most hopeless situations, help can come from the most unexpected place. And sometimes, the very creatures we fear the most, the wild beasts, can become our most devoted protectors.